I don't need to remind you of the gospel we just read. You, of course, just heard it. And it is a very vivid story that I think we all recognize, remember well. But a few points I thought I would make. Here is this rich man. We don't know his name. Luke purposely leaves his name out. Jesus has left his name out of the parable. Have your name forgotten in salvation history is to be cursed. But Lazarus, we remember his name. Here is this man who is great in the world. He had purple and fine linen clothing and feasted sumptuously every day. Purple and fine linen. Today you might say, I don't know, linen, it makes me itch. I like cotton. Or purple, who would wear purple? In the ancient world, purple was the most expensive color to make. Today you make purple, synthetically, like any other color. But in the ancient world, all colors were made from the natural world, from stone and plant matter. And purple was the most difficult one to make. It was made from the shells of certain mollusks from the Mediterranean. It was a very difficult process. And so only the most rich, the most powerful, could afford to wear purple. And so, in the ancient world, if you saw someone wearing purple, you go, wow, that's a rich man or a rich woman. Kings wore purple in the ancient world because of this. So this man has so much wealth that he's able not only to buy clothing for himself, but clothing of great majesty. Come on in, there's plenty of room up here. Don't sit back there, especially holding babies. The man has so much wealth that he is able to clothe himself, one, but also to clothe himself in fine linen and purple. He obviously has excess wealth. Then there is this poor man at his gate who has nothing. Probably laying there half naked and dressed in rags. We don't even get a comment about his clothing. All we hear is that he's robed, not in purple and fine linen, but in sores. So here is a man robed in all this earthly majesty of linen and purple. And then there's this contrast. We see this poor man who is robed in sores. And then we hear that he feasts every day sumptuously. Now in the Mediterranean, in the ancient world, and even in many poor regions today, you have one meal a day. One meal a day. You might have a little piece of bread or something at the other times of the day. But this man feasted sumptuously every day. The poor might enjoy a nice big meal that would fill their stomach once a year at a wedding feast or something like that. At a big party. But here, this man feasts as if it's Thanksgiving. To use an American image, you know how much we eat at Thanksgiving, right? Imagine that every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This man has so much food and so much wealth that he is able to gorge himself on it. Contrast that to the poor man Lazarus, who is so hungry, he wishes he could just have maybe a crumb that falls from the table. Those crumbs that the dogs come and lick up. But no one would give it to him. And he's looking for help. Notice Lazarus is not out in an alleyway or down the street or sitting under a tree. He's laying at the gate of the rich man's palace, hoping to get some help. But the rich man, seeing Lazarus every day in his hunger and poverty and sores, would not lift a finger. What a contrast to the dogs. Now, dogs in the ancient Middle Eastern region, especially from the Jews, were the lowest creature of all. Most people think that the swine were the most hideous of animals for the Jews. No. Swine were it was a high-profile animal because this is what the pagans ate. The pagans ate swine flesh. That was their normal meat if they had meat. And the Jews didn't eat swine flesh, so it was a big deal. Everyone knows about that. They did no bacon, no bacon. Okay. But lower than the swine were the dogs. And don't think of Fluffy or your Labrador Retriever or whatever you got, your pet dog. We're not talking about that. In the Middle East, among the Jews, the ancient world in that region, the dog was think of like a jackal or a hyena. It was a semi-wild animal that went about in the streets, a large city rat, basically. And it would go through the trash and grab meat and food whenever it could. A scavenger. And they were covered in disease, fleas, and mange. You would never want to meet one of these when you went outside in the dark. This is not Fluffy. So these dogs, the lowest animals in the mind of a Jew, miserable creatures, disgusting, would come and lick the poor man's sores. Even these dogs had the sense to try and comfort this man who was being treated by his fellow man like a dog. And so, those are the primary points I wanted to highlight, and you can see, you know the rest of the story, what happens. And so it's good to meditate today then upon stewardship. What is stewardship? What did this man do wrong? Was he wrong because he had great wealth? And was Lazarus righteous and went to the bosom because he was poor? No. No. It's just that those who are wealthy often do not pray. They don't perceive any need on a daily basis. And so, if they're healthy, they've got a good job, the money's coming in, everything's good, they forget. They forget about their relationship with God. But the poor, on the other hand, typically are a little more pious than the wealthy in a society. You know, I know firsthand how many times I've been in incredible poverty in my life, and how we would pray as a family. When I was a child, we were on welfare and food stamps. There's no furniture in the house. We had one bed. My father slept in it. So, being in incredible poverty gives you an opportunity to pray. When you look at your bill and you look at your paycheck and think, it's not going to work this month. What do? You start praying. Right? When suddenly disease comes, cancer comes, what do? Oh, then we start praying. Right? It's when we begin to suffer, we're on the edge of existence, that we suddenly reach out our hand to God and say, Lord, please help me. Well, I've been here all the time. Why are you calling out now? Right? And so the poor, because they communicate with God on a regular basis, have a close relationship. Right? Communication brings a closeness. Many of you may have a sibling that you speak to on a regular basis, or a friend from your youth that you talk with on the phone on a regular basis. You have maintained a very strong relationship, but other siblings or cousins, or other friends from the past, you may have not maintained that relationship. You don't talk to them on a regular basis. If I told you to give them a call right now, you'd say, well, I don't know, we don't really have anything to talk about. We haven't talked in so long. But you could call your friend or your brother or sister that you call every day and say, hey, how you doing? No problem there. Your relationship has remained strong because you've been communicating. And this is what prayer is. We speak to God and we listen and He speaks back to us. And that builds that relationship. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if I told you, I was having a little counseling session here with Maurice and Marie, and they told me that they haven't been speaking to each other in 3 weeks. Not a word. Right? They haven't talked? Not a word. They move around the house and don't talk to each other for 3 weeks. You think, oh, wow. What's wrong with their relationship? Right? So, What's wrong with our relationship? We're not communicating. This is what happens with the poor. They're constantly talking to God. He's talking back, and they're listening. And the poor, the wealthy who perceive no need, often aren't communicating and not listening. That's all. That's what's going on. That's what's the difference of Lazarus and the rich man. All the wealth that this rich man had, where did he get it from? From God. God had given that to him. That great wealth was a blessing given to him. And the poverty Lazarus received was also a blessing from God. Also an opportunity for grace. We all have our different ways in which God deals with us in life. So what exactly was the problem with this rich man? He did not communicate with God. Obviously didn't have any need. But in the parable, what we learn primarily is this. He was a poor steward of what he had been given. What's a steward? A steward is someone that someone gives things to and says, here, take care of this. The other day, it was snack time at the house. William was in the kitchen, and I said, and I was cutting up some cheese for snacks for the kids. And I cut up 6 pieces. We have 7, but one of them is not eating cheese yet. So I cut up 6 pieces of cheese, and I said, William, come here. Go, give these to the kids. Now, what did William do? I was asking William to be a steward. 1 piece was for him to eat, and the others were for him to give to the other kids. Now, thank God, William's a responsible boy, and he ate his cheese and handed out to his siblings their pieces. And they all had their snack. Right? I had given to William what he needed, plus extra for the others, because I knew he would be responsible with that extra. Now, little Lucia, had I given her the 6 pieces of cheese and said, go give these to your brethren, no one would have ever seen the cheese. And she would have had some digestive problems for a bit. Okay? Right? So, God gives to certain individuals in this world not only what they need to exist, but an overabundance so that they can be an instrument through which God then blesses those around them. You might say, well, why doesn't He just give it to the poor man directly? Well, God lets us participate in salvation. God lets us be an avenue, an instrument through which He gives grace to each other, to us. What a wonderful gift, a loving Father allowing us to participate, like you let your kids help make dinner, right? You need your kids to help make dinner? Not really. You can just do it on your own. But you let your kids come and help make dinner so that they can participate in that. Wow, they were able to help Dad. And so God does that with us. He uses us as an instrument of grace for others. He gives us what we need, but often gives us also an overabundance that we might be good stewards with that extra to give to those who are in need. And you say again, well, what about the person? Why? He could just give it directly to them. We have that opportunity to participate in it, 1. And 2, some individuals, when they receive it, will not use it properly. Jesus says, the poor you will always have with you. There's a reason for that. There are those who you know. I remember one time I was in college and I saw an old gray-haired man, looked like Santa Claus, sitting by the grocery store, and I felt sorry for him. So I gave him a 20, and I went in and I bought my food for our little apartment for college kids. And I went to the register, and there was that old man in front of me, in front of me, right? He's checking out with a big bottle of vodka and a lemon. Well, there was my $20. Right? You could give him $2,000. He'd buy another 100 bottles of vodka and who knows what. So God gives to certain individuals who are deemed responsible an overabundance so that we may be then a responsible source of blessing for those around us. That's all. And so I ask you to meditate upon this. How am I using my time, my treasure, my time, my treasure, and my talents? Am I being a good steward with what God has given me? What about my time? What about my time? You say, I'm very busy with my time. I have no free time. The average American spends 5 hours a day in leisure activities. The average American spends 5 hours a day in leisure activities. Hanging out at the bar, shooting pool, playing a video game, listening to some music, playing golf, whatever it is. People do different things. Watching TV. The average American, it's only 2, 3, 4 hours, I don't know. The average American spends 5 hours a day in leisure activity. How is that possible? Well, Saturday and Sunday, they average out for the week. 5 hours a day. What are we doing with that extra time? Are we blowing it on video games? Are we being a good steward with the extra time God has given to us? Henry David Thoreau, a writer from the 19th century, said, "It is not whether you are busy. Ants are busy. The question is, what are you busy about?" And ants are moving around all the time. They never stop. You ever watch an ant? Doesn't stop. They're all moving. They're all busy. Are we busy? Oh yeah, we're busy. But what are we busy about? How are we using our time? How are we using our time? Especially that extra time. Are we being good stewards of our time? Second, our talents. We've been given an abundance of talents. That is gifts from God. What are we doing with those abundance of talents? Are we simply using them for ourselves or also for the sake of others around us? What are we doing with our treasure? Right? Oh, Mona, the money's short. I know. But we as Americans, even the poorest Americans, live like kings compared to most of the world. Even the poor in our society here live like the wealthy in many nations. Our homeless here have cell phones. Okay? What are we doing with our abundant wealth? Are we being good stewards of what God has given us and that extra He has given us each month? Are we being good stewards? Or are we blowing it? Using it on frivolous things? When a poor man lies at our gate with no food and no clothing. What are we doing with the extra wealth God has given to us? Are we storing up our clothing and our extra things in our home? Not just a bank account. Look in your garage. Are there things that have been sitting there covered in dust for the last 3 to 4 years? Is there a part of your garage you can't even use? What about the storage closets? Some of us even have storage. You go down and rent storage space now. And then storage spaces to rent your storage spaces. Excessive. What are we going to do with it all? Tear down our barns and build bigger ones? If you haven't used it in a year, give it away. You're never going to use it anyway. There are people out there who need those pair of shoes you haven't worn in 2 years. There are people out there who are cold and hungry, who need that can that's been sitting in the back of your pantry for 3 years. There are poor and hungry and unclothed who need that extra jacket and pair of pants and things that you haven't worn for 3 or 4 years and probably can't fit into and never will again. Give it away. Give it away. Be good stewards with what God has given you. Glorify Jesus Christ in your stewardship of your time, your talents, and your treasure, that we may glorify Him with His Heavenly Father as all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, both now and ever, to age of ages. Amen.